What is up, everybody? Welcome to Sitting with Sean, episode number 41, brought to you by the Antisocial Network. Today, I have an awesome guest. His name is the Albino Rhino, Matt Gwinn. I feel like that's a wrestling intro.
I mean, it kind of could be, I guess.
Yeah,
It's a different kind of name,
yeah.
so I
If I go ahead.
definitely could be a wrestling name. I never thought about that.
Yeah, dude. Like, if I was a ring announcer, I'd be like the Albino Rhino, Matt Gwinn. Crowd goes ape shit.
Yeah, that would be cool. Maybe I could get Bruce Buffer to do my intro for my podcast.
Sick.
That would be sick. I don't think I have that kind of money though, but it'd be cool.
Yeah, or actually, there's people on TikTok who do like ring announcer shit that you could get them to do that.
Cameo or something, who knows?
Yeah, that would be dope. And then just put it as your intro, like the audio as your intro.
Yeah.
I don't have a cool fancy nickname except for derogatory ones. So I mean, that fits you, man. It fits you.
I mean, being a DJ and whatnot, you kind of have to have some kind of moniker.
Yeah.
To stand out, and I didn't want to go back to my old one from years ago.
Oh, what was your old one?
DJ Whitey.
Yeah, that could definitely be triggering for some folks.
It wasn't really that. It's just I don't want to rehash that time in my life.
Understood.
And that was my name for like, I don't know, probably 20 years or something like that. It was a pretty long time. Started in middle school. So
Nice. All right, Matt, would you like to give a formal introduction of yourself?
Yeah, sure, man. So I'm Matt Gwinn, also known as the Albino Rhino. I'm a DJ podcast producer and just general media production guy. I'm originally from West Virginia, hence the hat. Not too many people rock that state without being from there because we ain't got shit there but prettiness and some fish and some bear and some deer and a sometimes good football team. Not lately though. I've done a lot of different things in my life, but one of the revolving themes, unfortunately, has been addiction, which I started pretty young and didn't stop for a good 27 years.
Yeah, definitely, man. Definitely. Yeah, and so you grew up in West Virginia. Where in West Virginia did you grow up?
Well, I'm originally from Charleston, the Charleston area. I was born in South Charleston, lived in St. Albans for 5 years, then moved to South Charleston for a couple years, and then was dragged to Ohio against my will until I was able to adventure out of the house.
Kicking and screaming, huh?
I just, didn't want to leave West Virginia. I was little, and my mom was following a guy that she was going to marry, and I just didn't want to do it.
Yeah, I can understand that, man. I live in the Harpers Ferry, Charlestown area now, so I had to really differentiate the Charlestown area. But
well, yeah, that could definitely confuse the crap out of people. I've seen it back during my door-to-door years when we'd go to like your area, actually, Martinsburg. I think we stayed in what is that spot in Virginia? It starts with a W. It's like not too far over the border. I don't remember.
Wheeling?
No, Wheeling's like way up the other way. That's in the middle finger part of West Virginia, not the thumb.
Oh.
It's right off the highway. Yeah, whatever. Doesn't fucking matter. My dad actually lives in Falling Waters, just outside Martinsburg now. So.
Oh, nice. I like my location where I'm at now because I'm pretty much like 3 minutes from Maryland, West Virginia, and Virginia.
Yeah, Harpers Ferry and Charlestown's a pretty decent little area. It's still kind of backcountry culture and small town feel, but not too built up. I've heard Martinsburg's kind of starting to grow some.
Yeah. I mean, Martinsburg has the definitely the more shoppy area. I think they have a mall. I don't know. I don't know. I haven't explored too much of Martinsburg yet. I actually grew up in the area. Went to Martinsburg when I was for school when I was a kid, and then moved away to Pennsylvania. Came back and then joined the army. So I don't have much experience in Martinsburg as an adult.
Yeah, it's from what I remember the last time I was there, it's probably a whole lot different. They got all the 3-story townhouses going and whatnot. It's government people are starting to move out there, you know what I mean, to get the hell away from DC and all that. It's only like what, a half hour away from DC or something like that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know.
It's like yeah, like 45 minutes from yeah, about half an hour, 45 minutes from DC. Yeah, it's like oddly centrally located between everything, where it's very convenient to go places.
Yeah, I thought about moving to the Panhandle. Um, I don't know. There's just not enough work out there. But
Yeah.
now I work remote, so it kind of doesn't matter anymore.
What do you do for work now?
I work for a company handling my normal job that
Hmm.
keeps the bills paid and all that. I work for a company that allows me to provide technology solutions to small and medium sized businesses and nonprofit organizations.
Sick.
I can't actually say who I work for, but they're
Okay.
cool.
Yeah. They pay the bills.
Yeah, exactly. And they actually treat us pretty well, man. I mean, being in sales, I'm not a commission sales agent with these guys, which is nice. I don't feel like I have to rate people to make a living, and they actually pay us a living wage, take good care of us.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
That's awesome, man. That's super awesome. And I know when I was on your show last week, we talked about the Cape. Give me the backstory on the Cape again, because I really enjoyed that story.
So the Cape, that one, I always forget that like this shit's reversed. Um, it was whenever I lived in Arkansas, which is where I met my wife. Um, they got the Nationals is their little, I don't know, it's like AAA team or whatever. But they were at one of the games, they were trying to break a Guinness World Record, which I think we did. I don't really know. I didn't care enough to find out. But they were trying to get the most superheroes in costume in one physical location. So they were basically just handing out, male and female superhero costumes,
Mhm.
and being a Superman fan from whenever I was a kid, I was like, I gotta get the cape. I got the whole suit, but I wasn't gonna wear all the extra stuff. I was like, I just want the cape because I don't know if you remember back in like the 80s and early 90s, whenever like I trick or treated and actually dressed up and stuff, like Superman capes for those costumes sucked.
Yeah.
Like it was just this little piece of like flap of cloth that would hang off the back. Like it just sucked, man. And it always made me mad because I'm like, this is not Superman's cape. Like this is not what his cape looks like. Like this is crap. And that
Yeah.
one is like a legit cape. Um, it covers the shoulders, and you can do the whole like in the shirt thing like he did or whatever. It's pretty legit, man. It's
That's
pretty legit.
badass. Now, question: do you trope around in that thing
I
occasionally?
don't because it's such a large part of the backdrop that I use.
Mm.
It's kind of permanently attached. But I'm not adverse to doing it. I think there's an extra one laying around here from my wife somewhere, but uh, I don't know.
That's badass. I know for me, like I'm a huge Flash fan, so I want to get like the Flash costume, like cosplay. Not that I would put it on, but I want to get a mannequin, dress him up, and put him somewhere.
I was always a Superman and Batman guy.
Mm.
And Superman, because he's freaking Superman.
Yeah.
Like, how do you not like that guy? I mean, he can fly and he's bulletproof and all kinds of crazy stuff. And Batman was like always, people forget, like, once the cartoon came out on what was it, the WB or whatever?
Yep.
Like, Batman was traditionally a really dark dude,
Yeah.
like, real dark. Like, I don't know where this myth comes from where Batman doesn't kill people, but if you go like back to the 80s and before, oh, he was murking the hell out of people, dude.
Yeah.
Like I remember there was a comic with him and this villain named Metalhead, who was like this dude in an all black ninja suit, but it had like this barbed whip that came off the top of his head, and he would use it to like, you know, jack people up.
Hmm.
And Batman ended up fighting him. And at the end of the fight, like he took the end of the dude's whip and shoved it through his head. I was just
Yeah.
like, that was, but you, as a kid, you're like, that's pretty badass, right? I mean,
Yeah.
he's hardcore. And then, you know, you had the Michael Keaton Batman in the movies, and those were really dark and really fit the Batman persona, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then who came after him?
Val Kilmer.
Yeah, it was. And the Val Kilmer one should have been good, but they just made it too kiddish
Yeah.
and it didn't work anymore. Like they kind of lost me there because it just wasn't right, you know? And then, I mean, Christian Bale was the first guy, really, I think, to bring back a good Batman.
Yeah. Yeah. George
'Cause
Clooney, I don't think did a great one either.
not at all. Not at all. And that's no offense to Val Kilmer or George Clooney. I mean, they're both great actors. It's just the people who wrote those specific movies were not, it wasn't it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, it just wasn't like Poison Ivy was a ruthless bitch, dude. And she
Yeah.
was not in the movie at
Yeah.
all. Like, you could tell she was a bad guy or a bad girl
Yeah.
or woman or whatever. But like in the comics, she was such a ruthless cunt. Now, there's no
Yeah.
other way to describe that character but a ruthless cunt. I mean, she was
Yeah.
she'd get y'all super worked up and then murk the hell out of you, man. Like,
Yeah. And they made Bane look like a juice head. That was it.
yeah, that was horrible. Like that whole series, I mean, of comics where Batman got paralyzed and all that shit. Like, dude, that was a really hardcore portion of the Batman saga. And when they tried to include that in the movies, it just wasn't it. It's like if they did they try and kill Superman in the movies? Did they
Um,
do that part of it yet? I don't
they
know
did
because I
Bat.
haven't.
They did Batman versus Superman, and they killed him off at the end of Batman versus Superman.
Yeah, because did he fought Doomsday, didn't he?
He fought Doomsday. Doomsday ended up doing something, and he ended up floating into outer space. Batman did. I mean, Superman did.
Yeah, that's not how it happened.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I remember
Mm-mm.
seeing that. I haven't watched the Superman movie since then because I'm mad as fuck.
Well, Henry Cavill was a great Superman.
He
Like,
was a really good Superman. He really fit the role. The problem was they didn't Doomsday and Superman killed each other at the same time.
yeah.
And it was a very violent, bloody death.
Mm-hmm.
And like that whole fight was just wild, man. Like they were tearing apart Metropolis. Superman was breaking off bone shards and like it was wild. And I think, like, if I remember right, Doomsday stabbed Superman in the heart at the same time. Like,
Yeah.
Superman just crushed his skull.
Yeah. Pretty much. That's kind of what happened, except for I think Superman. They made a spear out of kryptonite. Like the head was kryptonite, and he shoved the spear inside of
That that's
Doomsday, and then
not that's not
yeah.
even that's not even it because the whole like the whole thing with Doomsday was he was from Krypton.
Yeah.
So he had the same powers basically as Superman did, except for the bone shards. The bone shards were like his quote unquote weakness, right? Because
Yeah.
they were outside of the skin and they didn't have the same like properties, you know,
Yeah.
that everything else did. And I mean, it took like what, like 2 or 3 comics before Superman figured that out. I mean, that saga was a long
Yeah.
fucking saga, dude. And then there were the 4 Supermen that came out, the Cyborg and the Kid, and like,
Mm-hmm.
dude, so good. I had all of them whenever I was a kid. Like, I loved Superman. I even had like the holographic one where he returns, and it was like in there tapping on Lois Lane's window, and she's like, "What the fuck?" all half asleep, and opens it up, and there he is, long ass hair, like, what's up?
Yeah, and then when they brought Superman back for Justice League, um, essentially he came back as almost I can't remember his name, Bizarro. He almost came back as Bizarro, but then something happened and he flipped and he changed back to regular to Clark Kent.
And that's not even. There was a Bizarro like version of Superman because
Hmm.
there was the Son of Krypton, there was the kid, there was the cyborg who had already known about Superman, found out he was dead, and tried to take over for him. But he was his goal was to like take over the world. And then there was a clone Superman,
Mm.
I think, if I remember right. But like the kid and the son of Krypton were like the only two who were legit versions of Superman,
Yeah,
but they were like from different like realms or whatever, like dimensions or something.
yeah,
And the clone and the cyborg were the ones that were fake. And if I remember right, Superman, the son of Krypton, and the guy who ended up becoming Superboy, um, they all teamed up to get rid of the other two whenever Superman came back. Because he
yeah,
came back before anybody knew he was actually back.
yeah,
And like he had to fight his way out of the underworld and like all kinds of cool shit, man. It was such a cool series. And like I knew they would never like I watched I think I watched Batman vs Superman just because I wanted to see Ben Affleck be Superman. And I watched like the remake of the original
mm.
with Zod and his whole crew, and they did a really good job with that one.
Yeah,
They did a really good job with that one.
hmm,
Um, but it's sad that like Ben Affleck wasn't the best Superman ever or Batman ever.
yeah,
He did pretty good. He did way better than George Clooney did. I'll say that for sure.
oh yeah,
But Christian Bale just had that. He looks psychotic.
yeah,
He's like Willem Dafoe. You know, they just
yeah,
look fucking batshit crazy and like they're gonna just fuck you up. You know.
yeah. Have you seen the new Batman with James Pattinson?
No, I haven't.
Oh, dude, that you gotta watch it. You got it, it is dark as a motherfucker. I'll just say that. If you like the dark version of Batman, that is the Batman to watch. And it's grimy, it's gritty, it's filmed in the style of like the Michael Keaton Batman, very dark. They don't come out, so Bruce Batman never refers to Selena Kyle as Catwoman. She kind of adopts that thing, um, that moniker. They brought in the old crime families, so the Falcones and all them, and dude, it was just great. The Riddler, the guy that they chose for the Riddler, woo, the Riddler, and even then, like the Riddler was fucking ruthless. He was killing officials off because there's a corrupt system, dropping riddles in there, dude. It was just amazing, fucking amazing. I'm excited. I'm actually excited for the next one to come out.
I'll have to check it out. I mean, I thought Jim Carrey did a really good job as the Riddler.
Yeah,
That was like the only saving grace from that movie was the
yeah,
Riddler.
hmm,
Like the rest of it was just pure garbage. Like Arnold as the Iceman was not great. And I don't even think the Iceman was originally a comic character. I think he started in the cartoon.
yeah. Mr. Freeze.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah,
it. Mr. Freeze. I
yeah.
like
It was too punny for me. Like
it,
everything he said, there was a pun attached to it.
yeah, and in the comic or in the cartoon, he was like one of the only really ruthless characters that existed. You know,
Hmm,
the Joker was kind of aloof and clowny, and the Riddler was just kind of weird.
hmm. It's crazy though because like of culture and like now the fandom. When you think of Batman, the only villain you really think of is the Joker. and there's so many more villains attached to that series. It's insane.
And they've always played Catwoman as a villain, and she wasn't always a villain. I mean, the only thing Batman had against the Catwoman was she stole shit.
Yeah, yeah. She's more of an anti-hero than anything.
Yeah, I mean, like they teamed up quite a few times
Yeah,
because they both were like, oh, man, it's fucked up, and they're like, let's fucking take care of this shit. Can we squash the beef for a little bit? Yeah,
yeah.
like
But
she
she
was a
wasn't out there
great
murking motherfuckers.
she wasn't like the Penguin, and she wasn't like some of those other characters. I mean, she was a lot different, and I never really liked how she was portrayed.
Yeah.
Like the what's her face did a pretty good job, I thought.
Anne
Michelle
Hathaway.
Pfeiffer,
Oh, Michelle Pfeiffer. Yeah,
because that was still I think those were Tim Burton Batmans, if I remember right.
they were.
Yeah, yeah. So the first two were great. Like I said, you had Danny DeVito as the fucking Penguin. I mean, who better can you get to play the Penguin? He's the right fucking height.
Yeah,
They made him super dark, and Danny has no problem being an asshole, I mean,
yeah,
at all. Like he was perfect for that role, and Michelle Pfeiffer was just the right kind of like sultry but caddish, I guess
yeah,
is a good way. Like her characters that she had played up in other movies up to that point were always kind of that Catwoman-esque
yeah,
character. I mean, look at her in Scarface.
yeah.
Like
Hmm.
it was basically the same, except she was super skinny in that movie.
Yeah. Nah, in this, so you would never guess who they picked to play the Penguin in the new Batman, and
Yeah,
you wouldn't even be able to tell like by watching them. And I didn't even know this until the credits rolled. Was they put Colin Farrell as the fucking Penguin?
I could definitely see that.
You never would have picked it out because they did a great job with his costume and his makeup. It was phenomenal. He didn't even sound like him, dude. It was great. It was great.
I could definitely see Colin Farrell being the Batman or being Penguin. That makes sense because he he's good. He's one of those actors that's just good. He can be a bad guy. He can be a good guy. He can be funny. I mean,
Hmm.
what was that movie he was in? SWAT.
Yeah,
That movie was awful, except for Colin Farrell. Like
yeah,
he was a great. He's the only reason I watched the movie was because he was in it.
yeah. He was in Horrible Bosses and he ended up dying, but he was like the best part of the movie.
I don't
Such a
really
turd.
watch movies that much anymore. I don't like them. Like it's so rare that I see a movie that I actually have any interest in. There's a couple. There's one I can't remember the name of. It's really fucked up. It's supposed to come out in like February or March or something like that. And both me and my wife and I were like, "Oh, we got to see that." And Cocaine Bear. I've got to see Cocaine Bear. Like
You have to,
dude, that movie looks so absolutely ridiculous. It's
right?
like it's like some somebody at work was because we can't talk about cocaine and shit at work. Like
Yeah,
it's not HR appropriate.
yeah.
Uh, which being HR appropriate is really hard for me, but whatever. For the money I make, I can be HR appropriate.
Yeah.
Um, but I was trying to describe this movie and like a way that wasn't inappropriate, and I wouldn't get yelled at for it because I get yelled at
Hmm.
all the time for like random stuff. Because like for example, LMAO, like they were like, you can't say that, and I'm like, but it's just letters, and they're like, yeah, but everybody knows what the A stands for, and I'm like, oh my god, are you serious? And they're just, yes, I'm like, oh, fine. It's like. But it's because like nothing in those chats ever disappears. Like anybody from the
Hmm.
company can go through and be like, "What are they talking about?" Oh, no. So it's like
Shame on you.
I get it. I get it. I get where they're coming from. We're supposed to be professional and shit, whatever. But I was like, Cocaine Bear looks like a combination of Strange Wilderness and Club 54.
Yeah, yeah.
And the
Yeah.
amount of people who haven't seen the movie Strange Wilderness is like just a travesty because that's by far one of the best movies I've ever seen in my life. There's
Yeah.
so many just taglines from that movie that I'm madly in love with. It's like the part where you got the monkey in the trees and he's like, look at that monkey's balls. To a lion, they're called a sacked lunch. And I'm like, oh my fucking God, that's perfect. The jokes are just so on point. You know what I mean? It's like scientists, the monkey's main diet are ants. And so all scientists agree that if ants were the same size as monkeys, this would not be the case. And you're just like, what?
It's just the most random shit.
Oh my God, dude. But it's all like, it's such a good movie. It's like Tropic Thunder. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think either one of those movies would be made now.
No.
And even like Tropic Thunder, like Robert Downey Jr. was kind of scared to do it at the time. It was like, I don't know. Fuck it. I'm Iron Man. Whatever.
Yeah.
What are they gonna do? And like some people were a little mad about it, but like the movie was supposed to be making fun of shit. This is
Yeah.
the whole point of the movie was to make fun of war movies.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always that black hard ass, you know?
Yeah.
And who
Yeah.
better to play a fucking sarcastic black hard ass than I'm sorry, Robert Downey Jr. I mean, like maybe Samuel L. Jackson or something like that. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's definitely some black people who could have done that role, but I don't know if they were willing to or not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like that was
It's
kind
a
of a
very
joke. It was like,
stereotypical role.
oh yeah. So stereotypical. I don't think like a lot of those guys are about that. I
No.
know none of them complained about him playing that role, so whatever.
Right. All right. So we're gonna go ahead and get into why we're here.
All right.
So Matt, you want to tell us about what it was like in your active addiction?
Huh. Well, I started young, like I said earlier. I ate LSD for the first time when I was 12. That was my introduction to the drug world. Beyond like, the little sips of beer that my grandpa or whatever gave me whenever I was a little kid, because I mean, back in the 80s, it was just different, Like a
Mhm.
lot of parents, grandparents and shit did that, but didn't turn out to be addicts or alcoholics or whatever. Um, I happened to be one who did. It started out pretty chill. Like I ate the LSD at summer camp, at Boy Scout summer camp, and it was cool. Never got molested, just got fucked up. Had a good time. My Boy Scout troop was pretty chill. It just wasn't like what people ended up hearing about Boy Scouts, which I'm grateful for because I don't know how I would have handled that shit.
Yeah.
I already had enough fucking trauma by that point. I didn't need more.
Right.
Uh, and then I started smoking weed not too long after that. Cigarettes after I started smoking weed. Or once I hit about 14, 15, I figured out that construction workers smoke cigarettes. So that was actually like my main source of cigarettes for a long time because our neighborhood was under construction, right? And they were just building it. So after I got out of school, since I came home, right, I'd spend a couple hours helping these guys out for a pack of cigarettes, and that's how I got my cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
And then they started hooking me up with weed, so I had a steady supply of weed, and like I stayed chill with those for quite a while, at least a
Mm-hmm.
couple years. And then I found the rave,
Mm-hmm.
and by then I had seen Scarface, uh, which I was a kid in the drug world as much as I was at that point. I understood it, I mean, I was a big fan of movies like Dazed and Confused and Half Baked and like all these drug movies, right?
Yeah.
The Stoned Age, which is one like so many people haven't seen, but I loved getting fucked up watching that movie. Shit was hilarious. Um, and it's not even about cannabis, man. It was a fucking alcohol movie, but
Yeah.
whatever. The 80s were different, I guess. But yeah, when I found the rays, man, is really whenever it went crazy because I was able to one supply any part of my habit that I wanted to And it also allowed me to start selling drugs on a
Mm.
real consistent basis because I got those hookups, right? And at first, I was able to handle it, you know? Uh, One of the things I took from Scarface is don't get high on your own supply. So I was like, whatever I'm selling, I'm not going to do. And that, by 16, that was no longer the thing. Like, I was a DJ and doing all kinds of crazy shit. I would spend the night at a friend's house, but then is that me?
Nah, it's probably me.
All right. I was gonna say fucking microphone. But yeah, so I would say I was spending the night at a friend's house, and instead of going to my friend's house, because they would cover for me, and their parents didn't give a shit. Like they were just cool parents. Not they were shitty parents, they were just chill. Uh like as an example, we got drunk at one of our friends' houses one night. I set their fucking driveway on fire with like rubbing alcohol. And it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. And this dude had a pretty high level government job. Like his whole purpose in life was to keep people who had committed murder in prison. Like when they did their appeals, like he was the guy that you went up against, right? And yeah, so I mean, Air Force dude and all that shit. Now that I'm older, I understand why he was so chill. But like, he didn't even tell my parents about this shit. Like we drank dude's whole liquor cabinet that night, all of it, and he didn't say shit. He was super chill about it. And my one of my friends who had absolutely no street smarts at all uh, ended up telling on me at a presidential election, like, well, before the election, right? So he made a comment about some tea bags, which there's a way to make tea bags to get you high, or whatever. Um, that's how fucking far gone I was by this point. I was willing to smoke fucking tea bags. Um, and so he made this side hand comment right in front of my mom. I managed to pass it off. Uh, but my mom ran into my dude's mom at the presidential election for, I think, Clinton. Um, and she made a comment about, like, so what was it like cleaning up all the tea that was all over the house? And that's when my dude's mom spilled the beans. And my mom, I was sitting in the car, right? Because my mom had picked me up from school. And she gets back in the car. She's like, "You're so fucking grounded." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She told me, and I was like, "Motherfucker." Anyway, it was so, I mean, just life was crazy. And by the time I was 16, it was shortly after my 16th birthday. I think it was like 3 or 4 months afterwards, starting to get cold in Ohio and shit. My mom basically gave me this ultimatum. She was like, "Look, I know you're doing this DJ thing. I know you're doing this. I know you're doing this." She's like, "You can either do that and leave, or you can quit and stay." So I left and spent a couple years couch surfing, playing raves, working security at raves, slinging drugs. Like nobody knew how old I was. I mean, I was getting into bars, clubs, like all kinds of places I should not have fucking been, but nobody gave a shit, right? Because I was the guy with the drugs. I certainly didn't carry myself like a kid anymore. I mean, half the time I had a gun on me or something, or some kind of protection because I'm walking around, with like a couple grand worth of meth or something. I wasn't about to get fucking taken. I knew how the game worked. Uh, there were many a nights I had to sleep on the fucking street. Like, I do have fond memories of that time. There were things that were good, right? Not life isn't always bad. Just in general, life isn't always bad. Uh, but there were also things that occurred that I'm like, yeah, that was really fucked up. Like, I shouldn't have done that. This person shouldn't have done that. Like, that was a situation I should have never been in. It's just fucking, it was fucked up. And I was going wild at this point. Like, I'm not even 18 and I'm like eating an entire vial of acid at one hit. Like just fucking buck ass wild. Right. Now at one point I did give up hard drugs for a while. I jumped on I think it was a rat dog tour. I was living the life of a lot kid, making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, grilled cheese and shit, slinging acid. Which acid was the only thing that I really did that was hard at that time. Smoking weed, drinking beer. But I ended up living with the Rainbow family for a while. Went to, did a bunch of gatherings. I was actually at a Rainbow gathering whenever 9/11 happened. So I was living in a teepee out in Colorado. And so, like I'm saying, like there were good times, man. Like I had an apartment in Albuquerque for a while. Like I saw a lot of, it wasn't all horrible.
You were just out there living your best life.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, but then when I got back to Ohio after I was done traveling, I went right back to the meth, right back to the heroin, right back to all that other shit. And as a couple years later, where I decided I was like, I need to stop doing this shit. I was cooking meth, I was making LSD, like I was deep. And I knew I was at that point where like you're either going to stay here and die here or you're going to get the fuck out. So I got the fuck out and I started selling magazines. I did that for 10 years. And that whole 10 years, I thought I was clean, thought I was good, right? Because I was just drinking, I was just smoking weed. But all that addict shit was still there. Like, I'm getting mad at other people for lying about shit, but I'm lying about shit. Like, I was fucked either drunk or stoned the entire fucking time. And it got to the point to where I was drinking so much, I would wake up the next day drunk and be drunk pretty much all day until I got off work and got another gallon of liquor. And then that gallon would be gone by the next fucking morning. It was not great at all. And I ended up leaving the magazine business because I realized like my life at that point was a complete sham. Too many other people were lying about too much shit. The business itself was falling the fuck apart. Like it just wasn't a place I wanted to be anymore. I wanted to start over, really, is what it was. Like I wanted to go back to the life I had actually led before I started selling magazines, not the story I built to make myself feel better about who I was, because none of those people knew me, right? And it didn't really matter what I said to people because I wasn't really around most people for very long. Like I was in a city for a week or two. How are you going to find out? Man, I'm fucking lying about some shit.
Yeah.
And the people who I was around all the time, they didn't give a fuck. Like we cared about each other, but they didn't give a shit what my story was. There was actually a saying that we had. It was like, it's your story. You tell it how you want, So, I was honest about some stuff. I was complete fabricating other shit. Some of it I'm not proud of at all now that I'm clean. I actually really regret some of that shit. But whatever. I'll get there whenever I hit that step. I'm sure it'll be a fucking blast.
Great way to remember things.
Man, it's something I've never been able to forget. And I don't think I can admit it to most people and feel okay. Like it was fucked up. Some of the shit I was telling people at the doors was just fucked up. And some of my friends at the time I feel really bad about, but whatever. I'm pretty sure they don't give a fuck. I care probably more than they do. Because there's still people from that time frame that I talked to. And what's really crazy, it was like super close to being a cult. If it wasn't a cult, like it was definitely cultish. So there's that part of it too. But when I left, I moved to Arkansas. I had a job waiting on me. And I kind of chilled out for a little while. kind of as addicts do, man. Like, I didn't drink as much. I wasn't smoking as much weed. I was kind of calm. Um, at least calmer than I had been. I wasn't drinking gallons of liquor a night and that kind of shit. Uh, and then I got this dude who I let be my roommate. He was pretty addicted to meth, which at first we just thought he was an alcoholic. So I was like, I can deal with this. Like, if I can get this dude to quit drinking, he'll be a great employee, right? Because he ended up working for me. No, there was no stopping. The dude was just fucking. He was as bad as I had been selling magazines. Like and in some ways worse, right? Because I quit drinking whenever I was working, unless somebody at a door offered me a shot or something like that, right? Like I was cool with that, but I wasn't walking around with a bottle of liquor or anything, just getting fucking trashed. And this dude, like, hey, I'm gonna go grab some food real quick, and he would come back with some food, but you didn't know it. He had little, half pint of fucking vodka chilling in his coat pocket or whatever. And he would just be walking around smashing it, man. And he had sold magazines before too. So, like, once I kind of started figuring him out, I was like, it made a lot of sense, right? Because he came from that same kind of lifestyle.
Yeah.
But then he's whipped out the fucking tweaker pipe.
Mm.
And I wasn't cool with that. Like, I didn't want to. I'd only done meth like once or twice, I think, maybe twice. Yeah, like 2 or 3 times, something like it was single digits between the time I quit, whenever I started selling magazines, and the time I left magazines. Because in general, we weren't cool with hard drugs.
Yeah.
But there were a couple times where, like, it just kind of happened, and I was like, fuck it, I'm already here. Why not? Fuck it,
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, so he ended up, and I had met my girlfriend at the time on Plenty of Fish, I think it was. It was just fucking crazy. Especially considering we're still together. We're fucking married. Like, looking back, I'm like, that shit was just for hooking up with people. Because, I mean, there were a couple people I hooked up with off that before her, but I don't know, something about her kind of clicked, I guess.
Yeah.
And so me and this dude were renting a house together. And I had left like a bottle of Mountain Dew out. And he slipped some fucking meth in it. I didn't know.
Oh no.
So I went to my girlfriend's house for the weekend because I was spending the weekends with her. She lived in a different town, like an hour and a half away, or an hour away, or whatever it was. And halfway there, I was like, "There's something fucking wrong." It's like this isn't fucking Mountain Dew. Like, what the fuck?
He
And I
spiked
put
that shit.
yeah, he spiked it, man. And I was like, this motherfucker gave me meth, dude. I mean, I could handle it, but I
Yeah.
didn't want to do it. Like, I had no desire to go back to hard drugs at all at that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
None. And I got there and I was like, look, I have to be honest with you. My roommate spiked my fucking Mountain Dew with meth. I don't know what the fuck the next 24 hours is going to be like for you. I'm cool with it. I'll be fine. But if you're not cool with it, I understand. I'll leave and I'll go home. She was
Mm-hmm.
like, no, it's cool. Shit happens. She had a little bit of history with some stuff herself. So, it was fine. And I went, it wasn't enough to like keep me up for days. I went to sleep that night and shit. Like, it
Yeah.
was enough to like make me aware, kind of get me a little high. But I had done so much high volumes of quantity whenever I was younger that like that little bit wasn't going to do shit.
Yeah.
It just wasn't enough. So, the next day, like, we were talking and I was like, I gotta get the fuck out of this house. I can't be around this motherfucker. And I ended up moving in with her. We'd only been together for like 3 or 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And, but she was like, you can move out here. And I ended up leaving the job I was at and started managing AT&T stores. It's, not too long after that. It was like the only decent job in town other than working for Tyson. Fuck that shit. I'm not fucking with chicken, man. That's No,
You enjoy chicken.
I like eating chicken, but there's no way in hell I was working in a Tyson food plant, dude. Like I
Yeah.
already knew what the fuck that shit was like. I was cool. Um, nah, I'd been white collar for way too long to go back to that kind of shit, man. Um, which is funny because by the time, anyway, later on, I did sort of. Uh, but anyway, I was working for AT&T, ended up managing one of their stores. Like, life was pretty good, but we were fucking hammering down like a case of beer a night. And I was drinking, smoking weed.
Hmm.
Um, I had gotten caught with some weed, was put on probation. It was like one of the few drug charges I've ever had in my life. And they've always been weed, man. It was fucking weird. Like I never got caught with any of the hard shit.
It was always weed.
It was always weed, and it was only twice. Like, and it was only like a joint, like each time. Like, what the fuck? Like higher power, bro. That's total higher power shit. Because there were times,
Yeah.
like when I was doing hard drugs, I was so far gone that I thought it was okay one night. Whenever I was cooking some meth, I blew up a transformer outside of the house.
Hmm.
And the only reason I know it was me is because it was like 2 o'clock in the fucking morning. I was the only person awake. I'm cooking meth, like,
Yeah.
duh. I got it had to be me. It was November in Ohio, and I was curious as to what was going on. So I grabbed my katana without a sheath, went outside, and a do-rag, dreadlocks, camo pants, and was just chilling, like no shirt. Cops were all over the fucking place. Uh, AEP was like scanning all the power lines, trying to figure out what the fuck happened. I'm just sitting there chilling with my sword. The crazy part about this, though, like beyond that, that's crazy enough. Like that's some straight tweaker shit. But I was surrounded by 4 schools, like
Shit.
literally next door to 3. There was one right across the street, one directly behind me, one right to the left, and then a block and a half up the road was the private Catholic school.
Wow.
That's like a minimum mandatory sentence of fucking years, bro.
Hmm.
I don't know how I didn't get fucking caught with that shit. And that's just fucking bad shit. That's higher power shit for anybody who's fucking watching or listening. Like, if you don't think there's somebody out there looking after your ass, that's some looking after your ass. Because how many stories have you heard of motherfuckers getting caught just like that?
A lot.
You know what I'm saying? And like, I made
Yeah.
it through that somehow, which I'm now super grateful for. But anyway, so me and the wife are together. Uh, we ended up having a kid, moved around, like went through our shit, had some crazy shit happen, like all the kind of stuff that like addicts end up going through, like no matter how she wants to present it, I know what the fuck it was, at least for me,
Yeah.
like my role in the situation, I know what the fuck caused all that shit.
Yeah.
That was my own addictive personality, me not thinking straight, me, and I mean, on the outside, everything looked like it was cool. I mean, I even ended up as an insurance agent. I was licensed by the state. Like, my shit was going well. Outside of my professional life, it was not. And my professional life was starting to suffer too. I mean,
Yeah.
I had freedom as an insurance agent those last 2 years that I was in Arkansas. And like, that probably was not the best idea. Because I kind of quit working. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
worked, but I wasn't like, it was just bullshit, man. Like I'd be fucking hungover, be like, man, I'm sick. I can't come into work. Like fucking horse shit, man. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Hmm.
So my mom decides that she's, sick of the grandbabies being 12 hours away. She had helped me get a $10,000 loan that I burned through in like 4 or 5 months. Mostly probably on alcohol and weed and shit because, I was fucked up. It's just shit was bad, man. So she was like, just move out here. I'll let you live here for a while, for like however long it takes. You know, and when your wife can come out, she can come out, because we had a kid who wasn't mine. He was from a different dad. And, you know, in divorces, they're like, you can't leave the state without the other parent's approval. And we had to wait for his approval. And he was in prison for burning down a hotel room, making meth with his mom. So, you know, working through that whole part of the system took for like 6 months, I think. It was fucking ridiculous. But anyway, so she eventually moved out, and that might, you know, everything kind of slowed down a little bit. Like, I was still smoking quite a bit of weed, but I wasn't drinking as much as I had been, because I was living with my mom's, dude. She knows me. You know what I mean? You can't. She'd already been through all the heavy drug shit with like the LSD and the fucking all that shit, right? Because I mean, when people ask what drugs I've done, I'm like, it's easier for me to list what I haven't done.
Yeah.
And that list is really fucking short.
Yeah.
And it's mostly pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
That's like, I can just say pharmaceuticals, and that basically encompasses everything I haven't really done. Like, I mean, I've done Adderall, I've done Ritalin. I've taken a few oxys in my life, but I never really fucked with prescription drugs. Why would I? I can get heroin, I can get meth, I can get all the real hard shit. Like, I don't need this prescription bullshit. Like, whatever.
Yeah.
So we're living with my mom. We eventually move out. My drinking starts to pick back up. I'm back to drinking a fifth a night. Having issues getting to my job, which had switched to industrial work. Well, I said I went back to, you know, that food plant kind of shit, except I was working for a subsidiary of Honda at the time.
Yeah.
And, you know, I worked third shift, so I'd be home whenever the kids were at school, and I could take care of all that shit. But I was fucking hammered, like, as much as I could be. And so I ended up losing that job, partially because I got a DUI, partially because I wasn't showing up to fucking work because I felt like shit because I was drunk. You know, and I was jobless for quite a few months until I got the job I have now, which was a blessing and a curse. I mean, I'd been trying to get this job for fucking years, man, for years. And I finally landed it, and I did great for, what was it, like 8 or 9 months, I think. Yeah, it was like 8 months before I started to, like, my drinking and shit started to really affect my job. Because at first, you know, you've got that quote unquote pink cloud or whatever, right? I was like super in love with what I was doing, and I didn't want anything to fuck with it. I was being good, you know. But eventually I was drinking while I was at work because I was working from home, and like, it just, shit started to fall the fuck apart. And I could see it falling apart. And I just didn't care. Like, I tried to kill myself like 4 or 5 times over the past couple of years before I finally got clean. And it just wasn't good. Like, I couldn't bring myself to kill myself. So my ultimate thought process worked its way into, well, just drink yourself to death.
Yeah.
You know, and I had done hallucinogens a few times, and I was starting to I was willing to risk things a lot more that I hadn't been willing to risk for years, you know. I'd sneak a little bit of coke every now and then, like, just bullshit, man. Shit I knew I shouldn't be doing. And then there was one day, October 27th. I was about to clock into work. I was drinking beer. Some good old ice house. Just fucking blowing money. You know, I'd lost 2 cars at this point because I had taken loans out on one of them. One of them I couldn't afford to pay the bill on because I was spending the shit on weed and alcohol. You know, it was just, I was barely hanging on to like any kind of semblance of a normal fucking life, right? And I was about to clock into work, and I was like, I can't keep doing this. I'm gonna fucking die. Like, I'm just gonna fucking die. Like, I'm gonna die, and I don't want to. I don't fucking want to. Like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't even. I was so miserable that like even drinking myself to death at that point just wasn't an option anymore. Like
Yeah.
it just wasn't. So I'm like bawling my eyes out, like just desperate. And I send my boss this note and I'm like, look, I cannot come into work today. I'm drunk. I need to go somewhere and fucking stop. I was like, what options do I have? And she was like, I'll get back to you. Because even though I was starting to, you know, things at work were starting to suffer, I was still probably one of the most valuable people that they had. Like, really did take care of my job as in general. You know, like my customers loved me. Like, I'd been doing sales long enough and been fucked up doing sales long enough. I was, in general, able to maintain. There were just things that I noticed about myself that I saw starting to slip, and I was like, "This is going to be a fucking problem." So they gave me a month off. Like they gave me a 30-day leave of absence, which most jobs are not willing to fucking do. Like you're gonna just here take a month. Like do what you got to do. Like most jobs is like peace, dude. You know.
Yeah.
Especially whenever you're that honest about what the fuck's going on. Like, look, I've been drinking at work. I'm drunk now. Like, I need to not do this anymore. So I called my mom because she was the only person I could think of that if I told her what was or if I told the person what was going on, they would drop whatever the fuck they were doing and help me get where I needed to be.
Yeah.
So I was like, Mom, look, I'm drunk all the time. I can't keep doing this. I was like crying super hard. And I don't really cry that often. So my mom knew something was fucking wrong. And she had kind of started to guess, you know, that like there were issues. So yeah, man, like I called a rehab facility and was like, look, I have this insurance. Do you accept it? And they're like, yes. And I was like, do you have an open bed? And they're like, yes. And I said, I fucking want it.
Yeah.
And I sat there. I was drinking the whole time I was talking to him. I literally drank right up to the point to where I walked out the door of my house with my mom.
Yeah.
And she took me to rehab. And I originally committed to 30 days because I was fucking shit-faced and I didn't know what the fuck was going on anymore. I didn't know what the fuck I needed.
Yeah.
I just knew I had to get out of the situation I was in long enough to be able to get clean. Because whenever I was younger, I had gone through the process before. I got locked into a rehab facility whenever I was 17 by my mom for 2 months. So I had a lot of those tools in my head already. And I thought I was doing it. But, you know, once you cross that line from being a normal social person with alcohol or with cannabis or whatever the fuck it is, you're past that line. You can never come back.
Yeah.
And no matter how hard you try, you're always going to end off just as bad as you were before if you ever fucking go back to that shit. And it'd been 21 years since that point, right? So you can imagine how bad I really was. Like I had gone way past the point of where I was with hard drugs. I mean, shit. I had neuropathy in my left leg. I was ignoring because I was drunk all the fucking time. Like there's effects that I've experienced now that I'm going to have to live with for the rest of my life. So I'm in there. I'm like, I want to stay for 30 days. I ended up only staying a week to detox. Because at the end of the week, I need some water. At the end of the week, like, I was clear-headed again.
Yeah.
And there was a guy who took me to a Narcotics Anonymous meeting, which he shouldn't have done. Because I was in detox. You know, you're not supposed to let detox people leave the building, but he took me anyway. It was a men's meeting. And when I was there, it just clicked, man. I was like, this is where I need to be. If I can do this, I'll stay clean and this insanity will fucking stop.
Yeah.
So I was ready to leave detox like then. It was only like a couple of days that I had been there. So I called my mom and I was like, blah, blah, blah. What do you think? And she's like, you're a fucking idiot. Like, if you leave right now, you're fucking stupid.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, I'll stay, whatever. I'll at least stay until I completely detox off of everything. And after it was like it's 7 to 10 days, I can't remember exactly how long it was, but like I just couldn't do it anymore, man. Because everyone that was around me, for the most part, did not seem like they wanted to really get clean. I'm almost positive they were forced to be there.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they were doing stupid shit like fighting in line for their meds and like wanting to fight the nurses over how long it's taken for them to get their meds. Like, it was just fucking ridiculous,
Yeah.
you know? And I didn't want to be around it. Like, it was making me feel insane just being
Yeah.
around these people. And I was like, look, I just need to get the fuck out of here. I need to go to meetings. I still have time on my leave of absence. So I'll just leave and go to meetings.
Yeah.
And that's all I'll do. Um, and I've been clean since, man.
Hell yeah.
And for the first time in what 27 fucking years, like I can genuinely say I'm done. There's no part of me that's willing to go back to any of that shit ever again. Not being a DJ, I'm gonna have to be around it, but I'm around it now. I'm good.
Yeah.
Like I don't fucking want any part of it at all.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. Um, Out of this whole experience, what do you think is the most valuable lesson that you learned?
You know, I mean, it's really hard to say, man, because I've experienced that super low bottom years before I even got clean. You know, I was homeless. I was living on the street. Like all this shit that they say an addict should have, um, happen right whenever they're ready to be done. Like I wasn't done. I didn't really quit.
Yeah.
You know, I got out of rehab and just went right back to the shit I was doing before. The day I got out
Yeah.
of rehab, I got high.
Yeah.
Um, and when I actually got clean, I still had my house. I still had vehicles. I still had my wife. I still had my kids. Like I hadn't lost anything yet.
Yeah.
Uh, I think so far, the most important lesson I've learned is that you can stop. Like it can happen. You're not stuck living that insane fucking life forever. Like you don't have to.
Yeah.
And I have no control over that side of me, like at all.
Yeah.
So I can't touch it. Like I just can't,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Uh I mean, yeah. I mean, the fact that there are things out there bigger than each one individual person that can keep you clean and get you away from this insane shit.
Yeah.
You just got to do it. You know what I mean? Take that first
Yeah.
step and be like, I can't. I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's the most important lesson I've gotten out of it, at least so far. You know, I mean, you keep learning shit the longer you're clean. But
Yeah. I completely agree. You know, that there is the possibility to stop. You know, I know for me, when I was in my active addiction, I didn't want to stop. So therefore I didn't see that there was an end, you know. And then when you finally get to that point where you realize like enough is enough, you can see that end. You can see that just, I don't want to live this way anymore, because it's self-destructive and it kind of fucking ruins everything.
I mean, I knew there was an end for years. For 21 years, I knew there was a way out. But I didn't let myself just accept that fact.
Yeah.
You know, like I knew it was there. Like by this point in the world, like everybody's heard of AA, everybody's heard of NA. People know there's rehab facilities fucking everywhere now, man. You
Hmm.
know, 20 years ago, it wasn't like that. You go back 10 years before that, it definitely wasn't like that. You get back to the 80s, cops were still raiding meetings, man. Like
Yeah,
fucking crazy shit.
yeah, yeah,
Um, so like I knew that's the crazy part about this disease, man. It's like I knew there was a way out, but I was telling myself everything's okay,
yeah,
and it wasn't for a
yeah.
long time.
That's the thing. Is when I talk to people that don't have the disease or don't understand it, I tell people this is the only disease that will tell you that there's nothing wrong with you, that there's something wrong with everybody else. You know,
Yep.
and like for the longest time, I thought, man, fuck, dude, everybody else has a problem with my drinking. I don't have a problem, or I don't have a problem with drinking.
Yeah, I mean, it got
And
to the point for me where like, between me and my wife, we were like fighting all the fucking time. Cause I'm like, if she wasn't such a bitch, everything would be cool. Like, I just want to get drunk and chill, and you got to bring up all this old shit, and then we fight. Like, we just fucking stop bringing up old shit, and we'll be cool. Like, this is your fault.
yeah,
And that wasn't really the way it was. It was I couldn't control myself,
yeah,
and I would fly off the fucking handle. And like, thank God I never like hurt her or hurt any of my kids. Like, I think we fought twice, but there wasn't like, we weren't like duking it out or anything.
yeah, yeah,
She's a southern girl, so I mean she can hold her own. And it is what it is. Like there was a bunch of other crazy shit, but like to me, I was the one that was in the right, you know? And then when I started to realize there was something wrong was whenever I really wanted to fucking die. Cause I was like, I'm a horrible human being. I've never been a good person. Like the disease just attacked me like from everywhere it possibly fucking could. And was like, there's no hope. There's nothing left. You just need to stay fucked up.
yeah. That's why this disease it attacks the biopsychosocial makeup of a human being, and people don't realize that. Like people that don't deal with this or aren't educated. It affects the biological makeup of human beings. The body, the organs, all that stuff. The psycho, so the brain, it attacks the brain. It's actually one of the first things that it attacks, and then the social makeup, it affects everybody around us, and that is the perfect disaster, the absolute perfect disaster to fuck our lives up.
Yeah, man. I mean, I was always a really social person. Like I love people. And by the time I was done, like I wouldn't leave my studio. Like this is a great room. Like there's so much cool shit in here. Like I've spent a lot of time and effort into making this a good studio and sound good and, have things around me that make me happy and smile. But I wouldn't leave this fucking room. And anytime I did, bad shit happened.
Yeah, that's how it tends to happen. So what are you doing now to maintain your sobriety?
Well, I brought back my podcast because I fucking can. Like, I can actually do it now. Like, I couldn't even do my podcast anymore. I was so fucked up. Like, I was pushing back interviews because I just was too hammered and didn't feel like it, or I was feeling depressed, or all this other shit. So that helps, right? Like talking to other people. I go to meetings as often as I possibly can. I got a sponsor. I'm working the steps. Like I'm doing everything I knew 21 years ago or 22 years or whatever it is now, that I knew to do back then, but I didn't. I've got a list of people on my phone that I can call if I ever have a problem. Hell, I got this one dude that's like, he's such a cool fucking guy, man. Like, you know, me and him talk about relationship issues sometimes, right? Because like he had his girlfriend before he got clean and still has the same girl, right? And it's kind of like, you know, they say you shouldn't get into a relationship when you first get clean, which I did whenever I was younger, 26-year-old woman. Like, that was a bad idea. So, you know, whenever I got clean this time, I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do? Like, I'm married. Like, oh, fuck. This is going to be rough. Like, I'm going to have to deal with that bullshit. And it's been super fucking easy because I'm not fucked up all the time, you know? But the times I have gotten mad and wanted to fucking yell and scream, my dude's just like, dude, text me you're fucking angry. That way I know. And then yell at me so you don't yell at your wife. So like, I just call this dude and fucking yell at him. Say as much horrible shit as I want just to get it the fuck out. Like, I'm not holding things in. I'm willing to be open about the things that are going on in myself. I switched therapists that way, you know, and I switched to a guy who is obviously not going to put up with any kind of shit. Because my mom ended up in therapy because of the shit I was doing, and I didn't know that until shortly before I got clean. But she had her therapist recommend some people, and she recommended a therapist office that deals mostly with military, police, and firefighters and their trauma. She was like, those are the kind of people he needs to talk to, because they're not going to put up with the bullshit. I mean, they hear the most horrific shit. I've lived some of that horrific shit.
They hold you accountable.
Like a man, like a motherfucker. But the dude that she referred me to, he's also got a really, really calm side to him. Like, he's helped me chill the fuck out. And like, I finally gotten to a point now to where I'm going to start dealing with some of that trauma from my past. Like, my next appointments, whenever I'm fucking terrified, dude. I'm scared. I'm not even going to pretend like I'm not. Like, there's no macho-ness at all. Like, I'm almost in tears right now thinking about this shit. Because, like, there's some shit, man. And I don't want to deal with it. That's part of why I stayed so fucked up for so long. You know, we run from our problems. But I have to. Like, I have to deal with this shit. Beyond what I'm going to do in the steps, like, I need to start dealing with this shit.
Yeah, that's scary. It's scary. I've been there. I've been there, dude. Dude, Go ahead.
I mean, I was just saying, it's fucking scary. I mean,
yeah.
Fortunately, none of it can put me in prison for the rest of my life. So,
well, that's good.
I'm lucky about that. But there's a couple things that are fucking close, you know?
Yeah. You know, and that's the thing, man. Like, looking at your life and having to deal with that trauma that either you caused or that was done to you is one of the fucking hardest things that you'll ever have to do. I don't give a goddamn what anybody else says. Facing yourself in the mirror and really looking at yourself and doing a good evaluation on yourself and facing that trauma head on is one of the most courageous fucking things that anybody could do. So, dude, I wish I was there. I would give you a hug because I am a hugger. I understand.
I am too now. Like, I wasn't for years, man. Most of my friends would, like, if they knew that I was willing to hug other people now, would be like, what the fuck? You never hugged anybody. And I'm like,
yeah,
dude, it feels good to just give a motherfucker a hug.
Yeah.
Just that little bit. Like, that was one of the things at that first meeting that, like, really got me. I was like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
I forgot what, like, human contact was like. Yeah, I was married.
Yeah.
We had human contact, but, like,
but that's different.
That's different. That's almost like you kind of have to because you're my wife. Like, and even that was kind of going away. Like, I was losing all that because she just didn't want to deal with my shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I get that, you know, it's whatever. I deserve it. I was a pretty big fucking prick, so that's fine. And I mean, she's got her part of it too, but whatever. That's not mine to deal with. So
yeah, absolutely.
I got enough shit of my own to fucking deal with. She can do whatever she needs to do with hers. I'm cool with all of it being what it is. Like,
yeah,
we got married for a reason. I mean, we're together this long. It's been fucking 10 years now, man. So like
Nice.
we're still together for a fucking reason, whatever that reason may be. I don't know what the fuck it is. Um,
You'll find it.
eventually, yeah. Well, I mean, it's that's just one of those multitudes of things that I surrendered whenever I got clean, right? Because I mean,
Hmm.
you have to, you got to
Yeah.
give up before you can get better.
Yeah.
And that was part of what is so hard for addicts and alcoholics or whatever you want to call yourself, like to accept, especially men, like
Yeah.
letting ourselves be vulnerable, like giving up that control that we fought so fucking hard for. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's hard, dude. It really is hard, but it's more freeing than you could ever fucking think. Because I don't have to worry about shit I don't want to anymore.
Yeah.
Like I don't hit meetings every day. I did for the first little bit whenever I got out, but I just don't anymore because I refuse to force myself to do anything but stay clean.
Yeah.
Outside of that, it is what it is. Like if I can do it, that's cool. If I don't get to it, I just don't fucking get to it. Obviously, there's some things that I have to do,
Yeah.
and I gotta pay the rent. I gotta pay the electric bill. I gotta pay the phone bill. Like there's things that I have to do, but outside of that shit, man, if I ain't gotta do it, I'm not gonna force myself to.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I get it
And
done, that's cool. If I
yeah.
don't, I just don't.
Yeah. And that's the thing for me. Like my first year of recovery, I went to meetings every single day. And that's because I felt I needed it. And then I got to a point where I was like, I'm okay in my recovery that I will go every so often. And then it's like, now, if I need it, if I absolutely need it, I'm going to go. Anniversaries, I'll go. Um, if my head's in a fucked up place, I know that if I go to a meeting, there's going to be something I need to hear in it. But I don't go all the time. And I'm not a person to advocate and say, you shouldn't go to meetings. I I'm the type of person that says go to meetings if it fits you, right? Like for me, I feel like a lot of the meetings that you go to, it's going to be people rehashing the same things from years and years and years that they've dealt with, and they're not doing anything to progress. So they've kind of accepted it and settled. They haven't worked on fixing it. I mean, the only thing that they fixed is they're clean.
Which is the most important part,
Yeah,
because you
yeah,
can't fix any of the other shit unless you are. My thing
absolutely.
with meetings was like, I have a wife, I have kids. Like,
Yeah,
I have shit that I have to do and I have to be a part of because it's a part of my life. Like, I'm lucky my sponsor is who he is. Because his wife found him hanging in their basement.
shit.
So she went through his addiction with him,
Yeah,
the heroin, the crack, like the alcohol, and they stayed together. So when he got clean, he was in pretty much the same situation I was. Like I, I knew we would click when I met him. I didn't know why. I just accepted that he was the guy who was going to be my sponsor.
yeah,
Like I could tell. You know what I mean? There was just
yeah,
that higher power shit, man. Like saying, "Hey, this is the guy that you need to hook up with." And he was perfect.
yeah,
Like I can work my steps as fast or as slow as I want. Like everything is completely up to me. He's not one of those guys who's like you have to go to meetings every fucking day because you're just at this point and you
yeah,
need meetings. He's like you got to have a balance.
yeah.
He's like you have a family and you have kids. Like cuz I talked it was one of the things I talked to him about. I was like, "Look, my job alone makes it hard for me to get to meetings because of
Hmm.
how late I have to work cuz I'm not working off the same time zone that I live in."
Yeah,
So, a lot of meetings are either already started or are halfway over by the time I get off of work.
yeah,
It
yeah,
makes it really hard to make a meeting. And I'm weird, man. Like I don't like showing up to anything late unless I absolutely have to.
yeah,
And something about walking into a meeting, like it's just uncomfortable as fuck for me. That's not something I wanted, because I felt like everybody would be looking at me, to be completely honest. Like that feeling, like that uneasiness, like I'm good. I don't
Yeah.
need that. I can get off of work and go eat dinner and hang out with my wife and my kids, or record an hour of music and then go chill with my wife and kids, or like whatever. And I'm cool. And thanks to the pandemic, like if I need a meeting that bad, I just gotta hop on Zoom.
Yep.
I've done meetings in Ireland, California, Canada, like just to experiment, like to see what their meetings are like,
Hmm.
even over Zoom, you can still kind of get a feel for them. Fucking Irish meetings are rowdy, bro.
Yeah, they are.
They're fun, bro. They're fun. Like I like those. They're one of the ones that I'm like more. I wish they weren't 5 hours ahead of us, because I'd hit more of them whenever I can't go to a meeting here, because
Yeah.
they're fun, dude. They're fun.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm following the steps. I'm following the advice of people who have been clean for long periods of time before me. I'm willing to be open to whatever the fuck it is that I'm going to go through.
Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, past all that shit, I'm willing to be clean. Like that's all I want. The guy who took me to that very first meeting probably gave me one of the things that has helped me the most beyond working the steps and having a sponsor and that kind of stuff. Every morning when I get up, after I read, the spiritual principles of the day, after I read for the just for the day meditation, I make my coffee, right? And I write in a journal like every morning. First thing I do is I write about what my dreams were about, so I can try and unpack any of that shit, see if my subconscious brain or my unconscious brain's trying to tell me something, you know, because
Hmm.
your brain tells you stuff whenever you're asleep, I feel like. Um, then I write about my previous day, and I write about what my day is going to hold. And at the end of those three things, I write a daily affirmation, just something I like about myself.
Hmm.
And I write a goal for the day. And some days, like it's a very specific goal, like I'm going to do this, 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 and this, and this, and then I'm going to go to a meeting.
Hmm.
But some days it's just, I'm just going to fucking stay clean today. Like that's all I'm going to worry about. I don't give a fuck about
Absolutely.
anything else. Like I don't feel like doing anything else. What I do know is I'm going to stay clean.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Before we shut it down, where can we find you at, Matt?
So I've got a website which is super long. We'll have to put that in, the description of whatever this is whenever you put that out. Because honestly, I don't even. It's a Wix site and it's fucking long. Um, uh, like I don't whatever. You can find me on Facebook, DJ Albino Rhino. It's the easiest place to find me. We also can be looked up by Albino Rhino Media. Uh, I'm kind of on Instagram at mgwin2013. I'm not really on there very often. I suck at the social media stuff. It's like I said, I don't do anything I don't want to do.
Yeah.
And I just don't feel like fucking with it. Like past that, DJ Albino Rhino at iCloud.com. People can email me. I don't give a shit. If you're trying to get sober, if you are sober and just need somebody to talk to, whatever, man. You know, um, I'm willing to do it just because me talking to other people is one of the things that I know is going to help me stay clean.
Hell yeah.
And
Hell yeah.
it's like that for anybody. Like as long as you're willing to talk to somebody else, you're all right. You got to hope.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, brother, I want to thank you for being a part of the show. Thank you for hanging out with me for this almost hour and a half.
No
Um,
problem.
it's been awesome. I
It's
lost
been
track of
fun.
time.
It happens.
It does. When you start talking to people and you hear their story, dude, just time flies by. And everybody, I want to thank you guys for sitting with us, hanging out with us for this almost hour and a half. I love you guys. Until next time, much love.
See you.